What is up, people? Why, Barney? Because if they weren't longer, I wouldn't have time to set up and get everything else put together on here. So that is why. So let's get in the chat and say what's up to people. What's up, True? What's up, GPS? Jax, Kerr, Free Farmer's Boy? Yes, it is always your fault that I'm late. What's up, Crash? Jax, I think I said that already. What's up, No Name? The Plain Truth. What's up? I still got to get back to you, man. My apologies on that. And what's up, Amy? How you doing? Barney, what's up? And that is it for now. Okay, so again, I apologize for the weird hours. Again, so I got a day off, so I'm here for now. And let me see. Trying to find something I wanted to show you guys, and then we'll get right into it. Matter of fact, here is. Go ahead and share that link in here so we can get you guys. Here we go. Let's see. All right, now life will be easier. Now I can see both screens. Okay, so here's the meetup link. Get that out there. We'll start, and you guys can kind of hear what I wanted to start on about today. Okay, so basically, now that I got that all done and don't have to do 6 things at once. What I really wanted to talk about is yesterday we had a pretty, was it yesterday? Day before yesterday, had a conversation with Free Minded and Brian and all them about refraction and mirages. And one of the things that became very, very clear was that the person we're speaking of, Free Minded, had no clue how refraction works. And how these mirages work. Mainly, I say this because, I mean, literally, I went to this chat right here. Remember this one? I showed you guys this one the other day. This is the Hyperphysics, the site we went to, and we were looking at. And one thing that came very clear when they were describing how this works is that Free Minded didn't want to admit he was wrong in his description of it. When I say that, it's because of this. We came across here inferior mirages, and inferior mirages clearly show and explain that this happens when the hot air, which is lower towards the ground, and the cooler air above bends light. Well, the next step was, okay, well, we were talking specifically the Toronto skyline and what is a superior mirage. And what ended up happening right away, clear as day, is he flips them around and didn't understand it. But yeah, so we're going to get talking to some of those things. And other than that, it's going to be open. So if you guys want to talk about something different, just let me know. What's up, Barney? How you doing, sir? All right, let me get the volume up. All right, now everyone can hear you. So I had a good question because, yeah, everyone can hear you because I just didn't have you signed up, or I didn't have the desktop unmuted yet, but everyone can hear you now. What's up, farmers? Okay, so matter of fact, you guys are pretty. I like that you guys are here for this, Barney, especially you, because you like to hear the different ideas of how things work. And that day I wanted to ask you, but I think I completely forgot. And you're gonna answer this too, farmers. When a situation arises of someone explaining their flat Earth evidence, and their evidence is realistically is science, yet they want to twist how it works. Is that not understanding it, or is it let me see. Okay, I see what you're saying. But like, yes, when we were talking to Free Minded, it was like, I don't even know how to explain, because it really frustrated me, especially because when I first found this website, or not first found it, came to the website to have a better explanation of how things work, he vouched for this website. He said this is a good website. So it was weird to me when we were looking at it and we're talking about how, the different air surfaces and the air temperatures and surface temperatures matter to which type of mirage you're actually seeing. And right away, he made it seem as if we were wrong, and that the Toronto skyline couldn't possibly be a superior mirage. Go ahead and bring that up so you guys can see it. At first, I thought that's all it was, but it got bad because I was showing him this. This is the webpage you were on, and I mean, and it clearly states exactly how these occur, and and I know it wasn't just he had it flipped around, because his argument was that how do we know the water is cooler than the air for it to be a superior mirage?
Now, but the specific heat capacity of water is much higher than air, which means it takes an awful lot more energy to heat the water up than it does the air. So the air is going to get warmer quicker.
Yep. And vice versa. So I mean, or not vice versa, but at the same time, the only times that you would have a situation of warmer water than air, I mean, you literally would see steam coming off of it, like a jacuzzi.
Yes.
Because
yep.
I'm not sure. I've been to pools that are like that. It's very weird.
Well, everybody loves a hot tub.
Yeah. So it's like, where could you possibly say that superior mirages are happening due to an inferior, or better yet, wouldn't that be an inferior mirage if that's the situation?
Sean,
What's up?
Sean, a lot of people in the live chat are complaining that there is a very high-pitched sound whenever you're talking. That there is some kind of a buzzing coming from your sound setup.
Let me check it real quick.
Sounds pretty clean to me.
But you also want to see exactly pay attention where the light is coming from. If you want to
Complaining
have,
that there is
you
a
want to
very
face your
high-pitched
target,
sound.
What's up?
Sean,
and you want to have the
Why,
light
Barney?
behind coming
Because
from the
if they
back of
weren't
you.
longer, I wouldn't have
So
time to
if
set
the
up.
light is right straight up in the morning, you see that target illuminated first thing as soon as you see it. In a cold morning, you will definitely see so far away.
It's interesting also that you say that, because obviously, if you watch a sunrise, you will watch. If you're watching the sunrise hit a mountain, you'll see the top of the mountain get lit up first, and then as the sun gets higher in the sky, the light will come down that elevation until it's lit everything up, which is of course impossible on the flat Earth.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that are going into this. So
Yes.
before I'm re-listening, guys, in the chat. I don't hear the squeal you guys are hearing.
I don't, to be honest. You're coming across very cleanly.
I know,
I don't know whether that's because I'm wearing headphones and it just.
Okay, well, if you say that doesn't happen on a flat Earth, I can give you a demonstration right now with light on a topographical map.
But what do you mean, a topographical map?
Yeah, for example, here, let me turn this on for you. Can you see this? This is Maui. This is prepared and published by the Defense Mapping Agency Topographic Center in Washington, D.C.
Yep.
All right, and that's what they give you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of 250,000 vertical scale,
Yep.
one out of 125,000. What is vertical exaggeration 2 to 1? Oh, okay, I see. They made it look, the mountains make it look a little bit bigger. But you can see how high this thing is.
Yeah.
When the light comes in, I got a little light right here. Hold on. When the light comes, the light just appears.
Oh, right. Are we doing sunrise or sunset?
Listen,
If it's sunset, we need to start up high, and then it needs to set below the level of the table.
for example, this is the east right now. This is the east, and this is your target point. You're in this island, and you're looking to this. So when the sun comes in,
The sun doesn't come in.
when it appears
Yeah,
from within the
bring it
vanishing
below.
point.
Well, we'll put it below the table then, so it's night time. No, below the table. No, the sun doesn't go around.
Okay, let's go
like
below
that,
the
does it?
table.
Well, yeah. When it's dropped below the horizon, everything's gone dark.
Oh yeah, you're right. When I go up like this from the table,
Yep. It
You
lights
can
the top
see
of the mountain up first, and then the light will come
the top
down
of the
side of it.
mountain goes in first.
Yep.
You see, so that's the actual physical horizon.
Now that you go as my.
Okay, so for example, I'm coming up.
No.
So yeah, it starts coming from, like he said, from the top down.
Okay, but now back off your map so that you can't see the light on the map, and then start getting closer to it and see what it does.
Okay. It doesn't
See
do
how-
that.
Exactly. What it does is goes from dark to brighter, brighter, brighter until you get
Hey,
closer
I'm
enough
gonna
that
have
it's
this
bright.
model tomorrow at the meetup, and you could. What do you explain them that for us?
Well, you just showed us an
You're gonna
example.
be there tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Actually,
Okay.
I'm
I'm gonna have this
written down.
specific Maui map, and we're gonna talk about these points with all the flat earthers. And then we'll have a beautiful time. Bring your own boots, no shoes. It's a beach house, and you're welcome to see some of the
Can I ask you
instruments that
something,
we
Earth?
have, infrared cameras and shit.
Can I ask you something about what we were just observing or checking,
Yes.
testing? When you did that, did you see a serious issue with maybe how a flat Earth could possibly work?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
did you
see
see something that is not observed or observed when we did the first example?
I'm repeating it right now.
Okay, but what we see,
Akaki Kanikyu Forest. Well, looking.
well, like I said,
Is
when in the
this
mornings,
demonstration as the camera rises,
Mhm.
and it is what we see in real life.
Okay. Now do
Okay.
now give an example of what we think we would see in a situation of
And as the sun appearing,
yes.
and that's the demonstration as the sun appearing. You don't see the delineation of a horizon like here, the curvaison.
Okay, so then why would someone believe it to be flat with your observation
Because it
or
could be
globe?
convex.
Okay, but we're not
We don't
if
know
it,
yet.
well, if it was
We go by
convex,
flat
hang on.
because right now we don't have the perfect
If
curvature
it,
to
you
measure the
understand,
convexity.
if it was
This could be
convex,
the proof of the convexity.
if it was convex, then when the sun came up, there would be an area on Earth that didn't see the sun yet saw daylight because the outside edges.
The convexity. I could turn this topographical map into a convex, and we could see the same thing as we could see on the globe.
But one thing that you know for sure we won't see is the appearance of a sun coming into sight. You
Check
see
this
something
out.
that has like a horizon. Correct?
I know, that's great. But this is
Well, it's
helping
the
us
truth.
to all of us think about what's going on. Thank you so much. Do you see all these little cars we have right here? Space is fake. We're right here about to. The kids are about to come out of school. We're about to
Oh,
wake
don't
up.
start with
Wait,
kids again. Really good.
yeah, that doesn't make any sense, and I'd rather you not promote doing crap like that here, especially if your information is false. I made it very clear. Like we just showed you, or actually, you just showed us.
Right. But don't you
Our
think this is an
observations.
honest way to do for people to do their own experiment? Don't you think this is an good enough,
I think it's a
honest?
great idea. The problem is
Exactly.
you're not
Exactly. No,
adhering to
you
the
gotta
fact.
entice
Hang on,
them. You
hang
gotta
on,
entice them.
hang on.
You
What the problem
gotta
is,
create some
Earth.
sort of
Stop.
I was
Here's the problem. You are saying
motivation.
that you are making it very clear that it is not a flat Earth. Just say it.
It's convex. Look, flat
but
Earth. I already
the
explained it to you,
observation.
brother.
Stop.
The
The
flat
observation.
Earth
Stop.
is
Stop.
the gate drug.
Stop. Seriously,
It's
stop.
the gate drug, brother. You
Stop
know
or I'll
that
mute
to
you.
convex
Because here's the
or
problem.
maybe concave.
How do you do? Okay, here's the problem. You're actually doing an experiment of observations that we can actually use in a serious situation, and you're not taking it seriously, and you're sure as hell not.
This is more serious than what you
Okay,
just
so
like
then
what you're
stop.
doing.
Stop. Let's be serious
Stop
about
what?
this for a half a
Am
second.
I gonna tell you to? Am I gonna tell you to stop also?
Yeah,
Can I ask
if I
a
was
question?
saying- If I was just bullshitting, yes.
Can I ask a question,
Uh-huh.
please?
What's up, Toady? Go ahead.
So a load of us were on the other hand. Didn't realise that Earth was presenting something. We might have missed it. Is it possible for either Earth or you, Sean, to summarise it a little bit, just quickly, so we can catch up with where it's at? Not that I want to repeat anything, but just a quick summary would be
Yes,
great.
I'm showing. Sean is gonna come tomorrow to our flat Earth meetup here in Sunset Beach, and I'm asking him if he could explain this phenomenon. I have a topographical map here of Maui.
Yeah. That's neat. Is it actually modelled as well? Have you actually modelled the islands?
This is done by prepared and published by the Defense Mapping Agency Topographic Center in Washington, D.C.
Can I just ask a
Danny
question?
is
Is it? It looks like it's actually 3D. It's not.
It
It's
is.
just printed, is it? No, it is 3D.
It
So I mean,
is.
it actually. Sorry, what I mean by that is it actually comes up. Oh, right, shadows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 3D. Fantastic. Okay. Well, wow. You know, full props to you, ESIF, for getting that, or Renee for getting that.
So
Looks great.
we're
Let's do
enticing the
this.
children to do their own research, their
Okay,
own experiment.
let's do what we just did one more time for people that didn't get to see it. I have it all.
Listen. No. You're gonna do that live tomorrow from
Well,
our
we can do it again.
from the beach
Otherwise,
house.
I can
Don't you want to
No.
prove?
Right now,
don't you wanna prove the
I gotta
globe
take
Earth
the
again?
crew somewhere. We're about to throw the kids right now.
Okay, well, don't promote.
All right.
that. I don't
So
wanna hear
you
that,
hold on your chonies. Don't get all twisted.
So,
All right.
so what I'm gonna do is I'm literally gonna have to go.
All right, Bailey. You have a wonderful time. We'll see you tomorrow, man. You're gonna have a great time.
I'll just pick it up out of here. Don't worry. Okay, so that was fucking pointless.
Is that a dead astronaut?
Okay, so
Oh, he carts it around everywhere.
yeah, hang on, guys, hang on, because I'm irritated now, and I gotta
Okay.
try to calm
Deep
everything
breath,
down.
deep breath, Sean. Deep breaths.
That is like someone who has a great opportunity to show and our observations, and he takes it as a fucking joke, and it irritates me. But what he was showing was where farmers asked him, or he explained to him that on our globe model, what happens is that the sun you'll see the sun rise, and the top of the mountain will become lit before the bottom. Whereas in a flat Earth idea is that it circles above, and it would come into range. Yes, it'd be very small and then light up everything. When he did both ways, it was very clear. Our observation that we make every day shows the globe rather than it be flat.
So can you just run through that again? So I get it that in our model, the sun comes up and it will light up the top of the mountain, because I suppose that's nearer than the bottom of the mountain. Is that right? Sun comes up.
Yes, I've seen some. There are some very good sort of time lapse videos on YouTube where people have filmed the sunrise, and you can see the top of the mountains get lit up first, and you can watch the sun. You can watch the light come down the mountain as the sun rises. And
Yeah.
and
very
that's
quickly.
exactly.
So when I've been skiing, the snow it kind of matters, right? And so I've definitely been up a lot of big mountains where at the top the snow is quite nice, but it's still very cold down the bottom, and you can't really ski on it, right? So definitely, I think that is the case. If the sun comes up, it does that. So I understand that perfectly. What was the other example then?
Well, Rene, he said, "Oh, I've got a topographical map." So, and he's just showed it to us again. And he got the light working on the back of his mobile phone, and he was sort of waving it around. I said, "Right, go on then. Actually, take it below the level of the table and slowly bring the light up, and you'll see that it will light the top of that little mountain up first, and the light will, as your light source rises up, the light on the mountain will drop." And that's exactly what he did, and that's exactly what he showed. And then he just sort of waved his phone around as if it was the sun going around a flat Earth, and got a completely different result. The result that we don't see.
Yeah, can you explain what would happen on a flat Earth? What do we think would happen? Because that's the one I'm having trouble visualizing.
So what you would think to see would be a small dot light in the distance, getting bigger until it became a daytime in the sun we see. Vice versa.
I see.
And vice versa for sunrise.
So let me just describe what I'm imagining now and see if I've got it right. So on the flat Earth model, you'd have a light, a sun, close-ish to the Earth, but very far away, sort of at night, as it were. And I suppose even the light might not get to us, or it might be very, very faint. And then as it comes around to morning and it starts to get nearer to us, it would just get more and more intense. Is that how it would work?
Well, this is the problem with the flat Earth model. It doesn't work, does it?
So, I mean, wouldn't we see it the whole time? Would we not still see the sun even at night time? Surely.
Actually, yeah.
It would have to have a lampshade, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the sun, according to the majority of sizes given to us to see or discuss, which is why people like Arwen say that it's not a physical thing. If it were a physical thing, you would never be able to not see it using practically every distance away from us that we're given and every size given for it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just that here's what it ultimately is. It's guesses out of nowhere. And it sounds weird that I said that, but last night I was on 24/7, and And here's how bad it gets. Someone said the sun can't be that far away. Light, or better yet, I'm sorry, he said light does not travel that far. So I said, well, wait, how far does light travel? His answer was no more than 2,000 miles. I went, wait.
Really?
Well, here's the best part, because there were two flat earthers there, actually free-minded, and a guy Bong something, who free-minded is in Japan, and the other guy was in Australia, and they were both making an observation of the moon, right? You think that'd be enough, but that's when the guy said, and that's when I went, hey, wait a minute. How far is Japan and Australia from each other? And the guy, I think someone said like somewhere around 4,000 miles, and I went, wait. Then that would make your observation of the moon in light impossible. Well, I didn't say it was 2,000. Wait, sure, because I recorded it. I recorded it. I heard you say 2,000 and tell me how this light doesn't do this and that. And that's where it's getting aggravating to me, because I'm hearing these people that are information, I don't even know what you would call them. They're not giving out good information. It's bullshit.
Well, they're just making shit up, aren't they? I mean, that is most of flat Earth. It's called making shit up as you go along.
Smoke blowers.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm doing, I'm trying to find. All right, hang on. So, all right, people.
Sean, apparently they can't hear you out of main
Yeah,
chat.
I know. In the chat, you guys got to make up your mind. You either can hear me too much or you're not. Jesus Christ.
I know everybody's coming in here trying to recover from Montreal, I think.
Wait, was that over at Jose's?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, it went on into Alan's, and I see Alan's just snuck in. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we were all on that, and then came over when we heard that there was some fun over here. So apologies, we didn't come earlier, Sean. We didn't realise.
Wait. Is Jose still alive?
No, the after show was happening on Alan's channel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Alan's here now, but I noticed that
Hey,
Barney
Sean,
Farmer
how
snuck
come you
away.
get Sean, I'm back. We're about to. Would you like me to go live while we share some information about flat Earth to the kids?
No, you're not welcome to do that.
How come you get so pissed off, man?
I don't want to hear, because I don't think, because
Why are you so pissed off? I'm not welcome.
Are not educated enough to be teaching kids this stuff.
Oh yeah, and you are educated, huh? Why don't you come out here and teach the children?
Here's the thing. No, that's not my responsibility, and it's nowhere near your responsibility to do that to other people's children either.
Okay.
Especially if your information is completely false.
No, it's not.
There should be laws against that.
If that's what you're doing right now, Renee, I would kindly ask you to leave.
That's
my
what I
channel,
do
because
every day, brother.
Okay, well then you're not.
Keep that in your mind.
Then you're not.
If you am not welcome here, then you're not welcome in my home. Then.
You should not be doing it. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
All right.
I'm serious. Bye.
If you come to my home, you're not welcome. You know that, right?
Deal.
All right, you got it.
Oh man, we got the big gun in the house. Welcome, George.
What's up, George? How you doing, sir?
Hello there, guys. How you doing?
George.
Hey.
Let me get this back
Can
on
I just say, George, maximum respect for trying to join FE Core and getting rejected.
They don't want a professional engineer.
They don't want a real engineer, do they?
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, there's a bit of a story to that, actually. Just give me a minute here. When FE Core first announced that they were forming, I sent them via PayPal 1 penny to help them along. And
As much as that.
And then later on, I went for the full-fledged membership at the $150 level, and they accepted it. And about a week later, Karen B refunded the money to PayPal and informed me that my services were not needed. And then I applied again a few days later at the $150 level, and then Mike Kavanaugh sent me a message along with my refund telling me that if I ever tried to apply to FE Core again, they would consider it harassment and try to take legal action against me. So Anyway,
But they're too busy taking legal action against everybody else, aren't they?
yeah, that seems to be the case these days.
Yeah.
So anyway, in spite of all that, they, of course, I understand they hate me and they think I am trying to. I would be on there trying to sabotage them, which I wouldn't. I actually sincerely wanted to try to help them out because I hate seeing anybody spend money and time and effort conducting and designing ill-conceived experiments and wasting their time and money on it. And I really wanted to try to act as an advisor for them to help them out, but that's neither here nor there. They don't care.
That's crazy. So wait, in science, like, so what they're basically doing is making it so there's no other side, no objection to what they're doing or anything they have, result-wise.
Well, of course. I mean, FE Core, what is that flat Earth club?
Yeah.
Well, isn't so when like say like institute or agency, whatever, puts out like does a test, experiment, whatever. When they get their results, is it normal for them to withhold results to anyone who's not, say, investing in them or donating to them?
Yeah, that's part of
Elsevier.
that's part of what they do. Is they have these different membership levels. There's the $150 membership level where you have access to information that other people don't have, and then there's something, what I think, a $25 level or something where you are giving access into their live stream or something when they conduct their experiment.
It's flat Earth Scientology.
Yes. That's a very good description.
But wouldn't you want, if you say you were trying to show how science lies or blah blah blah, wouldn't you want everyone to know?
Well, you'd think, yeah.
If it was legitimate, yes, but it's not, so they don't.
No, and they obviously don't like the results they're getting, which is why they don't show it to anyone. Because they're also expecting to have results that say, "Oh, look, the Earth is flat." They do these tests and they get the results. It's like, oh shit.
George, did they? You still have a membership there?
I'm sorry, Sean. What did you say? What did you ask?
I was asking, do you still have a membership with them?
Oh no.
Okay. Good.
No, they removed my membership, or denied it.
Did they return your money?
Slice Bar Kane was on earlier on, and he said he was a member for about 5 minutes.
So
He went in and bought membership for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I still have all the emails from PayPal and all that they sent me, and then Mike Kavanaugh started communicating with me after that and started being really nasty.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's any. So anybody who has the membership, they have full access to the results and everything, right?
Well, that's the claim. I don't know if they do. I don't know anyone that has a full membership that we could ask, but that's what they claim. But you know how it is with claims that they make.
Yeah, I don't.
You know what? I'm so tempted at the end of the month to actually get full membership, just to see what's in there. When I get paid.
You know what I would see happening? I would then see them asking enough questions to find out if you're flat or globe, and doing exactly what they did to George, where they kick you out and not allow you to be a member.
Well, that's fine. I don't mind if they kick me out and refund the money I've paid, but if I can get in long enough to have a look. But Slice Bar Kane was saying he was a member for 5 minutes, and he thought he would be able to get in and see the results of tests and everything, and he couldn't see a thing. He couldn't find anything.
See, that doesn't make sense. Like, there's got to be. See, well, I guess it's their little thing, and I guess if you choose to join, they have the right to accept you or not. The only difference is that I would say to flat earthers, why isn't that an issue? Don't you see something shady in that? It's weird. I think everything they say science does, that FE Core is doing.
Yeah, well, you're making a mistake here, Sean, in that you're thinking that this is a transparent organization that is bona fide
from it.
research group, which they aren't. You know, they're just a group of guys that are trying to disprove the globe and verify flat Earth narrative through their so-called experiments, which are very ill-conceived and ill-conducted, not very well conducted. So they get the results they want. And then, of course, we all know what happened. I think we all know what happened with Monk. Is, you know, he had, at the time that they had the ring laser gyro, he was questioning their spin on the results that they were getting, and he got kicked out of FE Corps when he started questioning the desire for them to suppress the results of the ring laser gyro test. And then, of course, Bob later on went and said, well, you know, it's the ether rotating and not the Earth, you know, things like that.
Yeah, so well, it makes sense that they're exactly why they're hiding shit, because the results aren't coming as they thought they would. And that a tall tale sign to me is that if anybody, and I mean anybody, shows anything they've done or showed online, the copyright situation. I
don't know what's going on. What's the latest with the spat between them and Sly? I haven't been keeping abreast of what's going on.
Honestly, I haven't either. In the sense of,
a little bit caught up.
It's pretty obvious what's happening.
Sly had been making videos about their fraudulent claims to be an 501c3 for a while now, and got it set up to actually have an interview with Mike Kavanaugh. And Kavanaugh said, "If you really believe
what that is, I don't exactly know what that is."
It is a nonprofit organization making all donations to it able to be deducted from taxes.
Okay, define that, because when it says nonprofit, it doesn't mean anything about, say, paying someone, like a wage almost.
Oh no, they just can't show a profit on their balance sheets at the end of the year. They have to either reinvest in the company, pay it out, or a number of other things that they can potentially do with it. But by being nonprofit, they don't have to pay income taxes on any. They don't have to pay income taxes.
So where would the profit come from, or who would have profit off that?
The profits would go to whoever the board deemed that they would go to, and profits could be returned to the members as a dividend. They could be given to the board. They could be quote unquote reinvested and put into a fund in the company for distribution or trips for the company to take. It just can't show as a positive on the balance sheet.
But they haven't been granted that status yet, have they?
No.
Yeah.
That's actually
they claim to have on their website.
But that's the thing. That's not a difficult thing to show.
As
but
far as
if
anyone knows,
back in.
as far as anyone knows, they haven't even applied for it yet.
And here's the thing, though: even if they were to, they would have to explain to the federal government that they are not a organization devoted to propaganda, because they would have to disclose they would have to disclose the reasoning behind what they're doing, what they are, and a number of other things. And the government is very likely not going to allow them to say, "Give us nonprofit status. We're trying to prove the Earth is flat."
Yeah.
Wait, why?
And I think
hang on. Why wouldn't they? I mean, the idea of it being that way isn't a situation of they're trying to prove it flat or not. That would be more of a situation of, are they stealing donation money? And then it would have to be shown to do that. So to me, it seems kind of odd that the hoopla about this is going on. But realistically, it doesn't really have anything to do with the argument.
Well, here's what's going. That was the initial complaint, and that's what's been ongoing for a while now. On top of the fact that they won't publish their findings without being behind a paywall, so they've got some shady business dealing. Sly had an interview with Mike Kavanaugh, who is the chair of the board, which is interesting because when you look at their actual filings for their incorporation, they list no board members, which is in and of itself rather funny. But anyway, going back to this, Kavanaugh told them to look into the company and whatnot. So Sly did just that, released a large video which he showcased a lot of things about them, including on their About Us page, on their public website, where all the 7 of the board members are listed with their names and their pictures. They all filed copyright claims, not copyright claims, they filed privacy claims against him.
Yeah.
And
Was
so
was it for showing that or what?
yes,
Yes.
They claimed that
He,
was
he showed. You can go to their website now. You can go to the FE Core website, go to the About Us page, and there are 7 mugshots of Mike Kavanagh, Bob Nadell, Jeronism, Karen B, and the other 2 as well. And it's there for the entire world to see. And that's what Sly showed. He had 7 separate privacy claims, and there just happened to be 7 members of the board.
Yeah, that happened to me. That happened.
But it gets better. It gets better though.
Oh, I know it gets better. I've been following it all the way.
Slander them?
No, it's not. It's not slander. Slander is
strictly a privacy claim. That was it.
Yep.
Just privacy.
That's what the same thing happened to me. I end up being collateral damage from the Sly FE Core spat. Is I had the same images on one of my videos where I was calling out the fraud of Bob Noble in claiming that he's a professional engineer, and I used the page from the FE Core that is on a public site that shows the board members, and I had that put up in my video to show who I was talking about. I went through all the board members to discuss whether or not they were engineers and qualified to be engineers as they were claiming, and so I got flagged by that. It's not a copyright strike; it's just a privacy complaint.
Yep.
Okay,
So
when you say a privacy complaint, explain that, because I've been copyrighted and I've issued copyrights. It has to be something. A private claim.
A privacy
But
claim
it
would be,
doesn't
for
ding your
example.
channel.
Okay, I'll shut up.
No, I was just saying it doesn't ding your channel. They just remove the video.
yeah, it's essentially a soft strike. It just takes the video down.
That's not a soft strike. A soft strike is.
Oh, sorry, not a soft strike. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it doesn't take your channel down.
Let me get. So what I'm getting at is for one, so everyone gets this very clear. I 100% think that FE Core is full of shit. But here's the thing. Well, to go to those lengths to show that they're lying isn't necessary. And I think that's kind of why they do it, because they know what Sly is going to do. They know what you're going to do, George. So it's like before they have to deal with the whole hoopla, just get you guys out the way. Not that it's right, not that it makes sense, not that it makes them right at all. I'm just trying to figure out why this whole Sly thing and FE Core is such a big deal all of a sudden.
Oh, we're not even halfway to why it's a big deal yet.
It gets much better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, farmers, you want to take this next section?
Which is the next section? Because it's all quite involved, isn't it?
The copyright, I could cover that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Sly then comes out with another video, and he used for the thumbnail of the video the FE Core logo that they use, an equal sign, and the poop emoji.
Oh no, that was Red's rhetoric.
Yeah, Red.
Oh, that was Red. Okay.
That's why I said it gets
Sorry.
quite involved, because there are lots of as it's developed, more and more players have been involved, and they're all getting hit with various strikes.
So now this has been hit with a copyright trade or a copyright hit.
Sly showed the FE Core logo, which is a non-copyrighted, non-trademarked logo to begin with, on his channel. They called a copyright violation on him.
Yeah, it's not registered with the PTO at all.
Doesn't copyright under hold on a second. Doesn't copyright under YouTube's terms and conditions covers people's content as content providers?
Yes, especially when you're not when you're not pretending to be that organization, which Sly made no attempt to claim.
Yeah, that's the only way that I would see that. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate and say, how could I see it being valid? That's the only way I can think it being valid. If it's in the T's and C's of YouTube, that things like your avatar, your logo, are things that they will recognize as a copyright strike.
Well, here's the thing with YouTube. YouTube is just a platform. YouTube doesn't look for these things. YouTube doesn't even care to discipline or do anything about it. All they are is the middleman in that. Once it hits a copyright or someone makes a claim, it's no longer between YouTube and anybody. So if YouTube has something for, say, a anything that would say, you can't use their logo or you can't do this, you can't do that. It's not in a legal sense. It's literally just telling people how to, huh?
No, I'm just saying YouTube are clever fuckers, because what they've done is they've basically said it's not our problem, therefore any loss that you may incur is not our responsibility. Ergo, you have no legal redress back to us. That's clever.
However,
which is why one of the biggest issues with YouTube, and it's known by YouTube, is their copyright clause.
Yeah.
However, I believe it was the late 70s or early 80s, Flint v. Disney. The Supreme Court of the United States said that images that are known to be part of a company's brand can be used in parody. Because Larry Flint in Hustler magazine had a cartoon of Mickey and Minnie doing it, and of course Disney took offense at this and took him to court. And he said, "This is parody. I'm not saying that this is an official release from the Disney company. No one's believing this. This is parody." And the Supreme Court upheld Larry Flint's side of things.
Well, here's the thing. You got to put it like this. YouTube would be the company that, or the news agency that was talking about it. Again, they're not the same thing. It's not the same situation of my logo being used and YouTube caring for shits. All YouTube cares about is that they don't get involved. They don't want nothing to do with it. So if I'm saying, when
it's going to court like it is.
Yeah. So if, for instance, if FE Court goes, okay, that's slander, YouTube doesn't decide if it's slander.
Oh yeah,
YouTube
that's legal. It's more the fact that YouTube are taking the action to take the video down.
No. It's not. They're not taking the action. All they're doing is making sure they don't become involved. So when they took
down the video and gave Sly a copyright strike.
Yeah, exactly. But that means, okay, it's no longer a problem. You guys need to deal with this. Let us know what happens. Because the only way to get rid of that is literally to either convince them that it was false, or it go through courts. In the other
Did any of you see Red's Rhetoric video earlier today?
Yeah, with the copyright lawyer. Yes, that was very interesting.
Yeah, so it sounds, based on what I saw in that video, that FE Core is pretty fucked.
Yep.
Why? Based on what?
Because they made false copyright claims based on slander, and slander has nothing to do with copyright claims.
But I'm confused. Was it slander, or was it just that their faces were put out there?
Red's Rhetoric has
we didn't get to
emails
yet.
Red's Rhetoric has emails saying from FE Core saying that it was slander, but they didn't strike it based on slander. They struck it based on copyright. So there's a couple things going on there. First, copyright has nothing to do with slander, and what they did was not slander under the law.
Furthermore,
so they were false claims.
And I have to say, sorry, go on.
Go ahead, Dress. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and if anyone can monetize a bad scenario, it's Red. Be warned. He's a tenacious motherfucker.
That's the thing. It makes. Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
No. You actually have been trying to say something.
This also, whenever you file a claim through YouTube, you certify, that you are telling the truth under penalty of perjury. Now, this gets into an ugly area, because anything that has to do with communications in the United States deals with the FCC, which is a federal agency, Federal Communications Commission. That turns it into a felony. Okay, felony perjury.
Only if prosecuted.
If prosecuted, correct. But whether a crime is prosecuted or not doesn't matter. If you knowingly make a false claim under penalty of perjury regarding something that takes place via communication systems, felony perjury that are designed across state lines, that falls under the jurisdiction. Prosecuted, correct. But whether a crime is prosecuted, a felony doesn't
right,
matter.
And that's what Leonard French said earlier today, was that copyright claims are basically all federal.
So now what they've done is they've committed at least 7 acts of felony perjury, And for the privacy strikes, they've committed several other, admitted acts of perjury for the copyright strikes. They are boned every way to Thursday.
Yeah, and in one of their claims, they claimed a copyright on a video based on a filming of a location, because they claimed that it was their own video entirely. But Reds was using a labeled mirror from a live stream of Sean Hufford.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes. Sean Hufford actually went out to what are supposedly the registered offices of FE Corps, and they're not.
Yep.
It's an old converted church, isn't it? It's got a couple of businesses there.
Yeah, but
so Sean
sign of
Hufford,
anything FE Core related.
Yeah, Sean Hufford had filmed that. Then Reds mirrored that video, and it was Reds who got hit with a copyright strike. And it's like, copyright of what?
How come Reds, Sly, or anyone else involved? How come they're not doing any of this, showing how they're illegally doing anything under the wraps, like legalists, like through the regular legal system, rather than through YouTube?
They are,
because they have the platform.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure Sly has retained counsel.
Yes.
No. I mean,
a lot behind the scenes that's not being released.
No. I mean, before this started as a fiasco. I mean, FE Corps has been around for a while. Why not 8 months ago weren't they filing these claims that they're lying and all this other stuff?
Because they didn't want to take it to a legal case. It's one thing to say this is a fraudulent company online, but the moment that company comes at you and commits a crime, now you're motivated to actually strike at them.
Yeah,
that's exactly. Hang on, they've been saying that they're fraudulent and that they're lying and all this other stuff. What exactly are they lying about besides the shape of the Earth?
They are telling their contributors that donations to them are tax deductible when they're not.
right.
Okay, so
Because they're not 501c3.
Okay, so then what
For
evidence
approximately
is there that they're not?
For
The fact that
approximately
they're
2
not.
years. For
The fact
approximately
that
2 years.
they are not a registered 501c3. You can go online and look up.
It's on public record.
Okay, I'm confused as shit now. Okay, is Sly going at them because they said they were, or that because they are?
Oh, okay, let's take it from this angle. Sly was helping to shine the light on the fact that they were saying for 2 years that they were a 501c3 and were not. Because of that, they got pissy with him, and that's when the ball started rolling. This privacy strike, copyrights, all that stuff, that's just caused everything to gain momentum. But the root cause of what got Sly and others involved was the lies initiated and or perpetuated by FE Corps, saying things like they are a 501c3, which is a nonprofit similar to churches, charities such as Goodwill or the Salvation Army.
Right. If you donate to a 501c3 nonprofit, you can deduct those charitable contributions from your taxes.
Okay,
where
would you look to find that or not?
The IRS website.
The IRS maintains public record of who has filed for 501c3 status, and it is there for public consumption.
Did they state that they were?
They stated for 2 years, and I personally have screenshots of the Wayback Machine showing that for 2 years they were claiming 501c3 status, and suddenly, at one point, I believe it was July of 2018, if I recall correctly, the website changed and said, "Oh, we're applying for 501c3 status," but yet, as of I think July of this year, they haven't even filed for it, according to the IRS's website.
Couldn't that just be a typo, or?
No, they've been claiming all along that they had this status, and then all of a sudden, I think as it was slowly coming to light, they changed. They made lots of changes on their website, because that's probably about the time that Bob Nodell suddenly wasn't a commercial
pilot. Correct.
Yeah, that had been on their website for ages as well. And if you look back on the Wayback website, you can see all this. And they've been claiming things for years, and now all of a sudden they're claiming something else. But Mike Kavanagh said to Sly Sparkane, he and the videos on his channel of him interviewing them. He said, "Well, no, look into us." So Sly did, and that's all he's done. He hasn't been deceptive. There's no trickery. There's no lies. Everything he has reported is 100% factual. And FE Corps have taken exception to that. And Sly and Reds have some very vitriolic emails from Mike Kavanagh and others, basically saying, "We're fucking coming after you, you bunch of arseholes."
And here's the funny
exactly
part. FE Corps is here. You want to hear something really funny? FE Corps has actually reached out to Riley as a part of their legal advice.
Oh yeah, he's their legal advisor.
I've got a view.
A guy who cannot win in court.
Life's a beach.
The funny
Besides,
thing,
one,
Here's the thing.
and one.
The reason I'm asking these questions is, well, for one, it's like it just seems to me like it's being so publicized by
Surreal.
all these guys that it's like, to me, it seems motivated. That makes sense.
Well, it is motivated. They say their channels have strikes. Their channels have strikes now.
Well, is it soft or not? Because the soft strikes don't matter.
The copyright strikes are hard.
Yeah, if you get too many copyright strikes, you can lose your channel.
Okay, so that's kind of where I was getting at, because before you were talking, it wasn't. These weren't the real copyrights. So they're getting copyrighted because Sly used FE Corps' logo or in one of his uploads.
Yes.
And it was about what?
It was just the photo there as he was talking about the company. He didn't claim to be a part of them. He didn't try to insinuate that he was a member. Nothing of that nature. He just simply had their logo up as he was discussing them.
If I recall correctly,
Red got the strike because he just put their logo equals poop emoji, and they struck him for that.
That was the thumbnail for his video.
Kind of what this is why I'm asking. This is kind of so. When you do this, when you do copyright strike someone, it is a big deal, because if they say, "Hey, this is bullshit," I'm going to take it to court. It really will go to court. Now, is there a chance? Just hear this out. That maybe everyone on this side of the argument doesn't see any slander or doesn't care that certain things may have happened to get to this point, because I find it hard to believe that FE Corps would go to this length to this point without dropping it unless they felt they had a reason. And
according to Leonard French,
go ahead. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, according to Leonard French, the copyright attorney, who's also a YouTuber who was on Red's channel earlier today, slander has nothing to do with copyright. If you copyright strike somebody based on slander, then it's automatically not a legit copyright claim.
Wait, why is that? Wait, how is it?
Because copyright law does not encompass slander.
What? What are you talking?
No, it doesn't.
Copyright
It just doesn't cover it.
So when you hit the little report button, and it says report video, the sexual content, violence, and says hurtful or abusive content, imminent physical harm, harmful, dangerous acts, child abuse, promotes terrorism, spam, misleading, infringes my rights, caption issues. I mean, it pretty much covers everything, and then there's sub choices in that. Slander is definitely one of them. The same reason.
But that's not what they claimed. They claimed copyright.
Okay, but
and copyright law
doesn't make sense. Copyright is the final. What would they have reported the video for?
That's most of the argument. What FE Corps are claiming doesn't make sense.
Okay, I'll show you guys right now. You can't file, like, I'm not sure if you guys have ever done this before.
They filed first.
Look, you can't file a copyright. There has to be a reason for the copyright. That's what I'm asking. So it has to be one of these to start off with. When you go to
that would be under infringing my rights, would it not?
Huh? Okay.
It would be under infringing my rights, would it not?
Okay, then the next one would be.
There you go. Infringing my copyright.
Okay, so what would it be? Infringing my copyright. What would that entail that they're saying? So they're saying infringing the copyright is the logo, because I can tell you guys right now that you're wrong and you're right, because you don't have to be trademarked. You can just need to be, your channel just has to have a brand. That makes
I don't
sense?
think you can.
According to the copyright
See this?
attorney, you can use someone's a logo.
See that right there?
Yeah,
That little logo on the bottom right of my screen?
It's fair use to use somebody's logo in this way.
In what way?
Parody.
Lost you.
Parody, reporting.
Parody discussion.
Okay. And in that, and someone said it earlier, you're not supposed to slander. Now, that's why I asked, is it your versions of slander or the legal version of slander?
The legal version of slander is not tied to copyright. I can have a picture of Disney up and say any awful thing I want to
that's
about
not true.
Disney. But
If you use my logo and you slander me, that is 100%.
no, it's
But
not.
what he did was not slander. He put their logo equals poop emoji.
It's
Okay,
not.
really? Wait. Stop.
You cannot
Stop.
hit me
Hang
for
on, Brian.
slander
Hang on.
for me
Hang on.
using your logo.
Yes, you. No, if you. Okay, say it again, Cliff. Say exactly what you just said again.
He used their logo equals poop emoji, which according to the copyright lawyer, who's a seasoned copyright lawyer, says is not slander. I'm not a lawyer.
Well,
I have to
here's
take his
the
word
thing.
for it.
He can't even decide that. A judge decides that. So if he said it's
There
not
have
slander,
been landmarks.
That's not true.
Well,
There have
he's,
been
Case law
landmark
decides it,
cases.
John.
What?
yeah, there's precedent.
It's case law that decides it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The attorney.
Good point, Pip. Sean, you really need you need to
Do me a
watch.
favor. Do me a favor, Blue. Take that down. Because I don't want to even take the chance of me. I don't know what's going on, and I just don't want to be the one.
Oh, don't worry, that's not their logo.
Oh, I did actually find it funny that they host their website in the Netherlands because that brings any content they put there under European GDPR law.
Well, isn't that where Mike Kavanagh's from?
Could be, but he uses GoDaddy.
Yes.
I'm confused. Like I see the issue in the sense that FE Core is full of shit. But the issue I'm having is that it's just like this whole thing is made into this whole big situation, and I think it's just a lot of more dick-shit size measuring contest on who's gonna win this. Realistically, FE Core is gonna do whatever the fuck they want. Who's giving them money that makes a difference?
Here's the
People
thing.
that are enjoying it.
Here's the thing, Sean. If they get outed as not being a legitimate organization, they're going to be due to a lot of lawsuits. Wouldn't
Wouldn't the lawsuits be issued once someone tries to file their taxes and get that money back through taxes, and they're like, no? Because that'd be like me going, that's like me working independent.
Yes, and there's been an issue with that.
Okay, so then what does Sly need to do that for? That's gonna
Sly
come out anyway.
just shined a light on them, and they attacked him, so he retaliated.
Sean, you need to watch Sly's videos. It's too difficult for us to try and explain it because it's quite convoluted. If you
This
watch
has been
Sly's
going on for
videos,
some
you'll
It
know
is
what's
time.
going on.
it is pretty complicated.
Yeah, you have to watch Sly's stuff. There's no point in us trying to explain it to you.
Well, then there's no point in anyone talking about it except for the
Well,
parties at hand.
And everybody's mirroring videos and things as well. So
Yeah, well,
they're
that's
trying to get Sly's.
Well, see, that's the issue. I see it as a lot of people who are kind of already one-sided to something. Like, for instance, everyone here hates FE Corp because they're full of shit. We know that. You're not gonna have a good non-biased opinion about them or what's going on. Better yet,
Yes, I agree with that.
Like, for instance, I find it hard pressed that a copyright attorney came on and went, logo and a poop emoji, not slander. That's crap. That's bullshit. That is slander.
You can go on. You can go on Red. You can
Yeah,
go on
it's not
Red
even
page
fair
and
use.
watch that. It's saved. Reds has that up.
It was
No,
just this
he
afternoon.
can say that all he wants, but I'm telling you right now, it's slander because it
It's
does
not
put
slander.
you.
It's not
No,
slander.
what
Case
is slander?
law.
Giving
What is
Done
giving
under
someone.
fair use.
I
What's
posted
slander?
a legal definition of slander. I posted it in the side chat. Also
Oral
posted a
defamation.
legal definition of libel.
Okay, slander.
Yes, or slander
Oral
is when you
defamation
say something
in which
against
someone
people.
tells
And libel
one
is when you
or
write
more
it.
persons an untruth about another, which untruth will harm the representation of the persons defamed. So, saying that FE Core is shit isn't saying their company is shit or what they're doing is shit.
It's not legally
That is-
contained
that
under
is the
defamation.
expression-
Under what? Otherwise,
is
you
the
would never be able to
expression of an
say Coke
opinion.
sucks or Pepsi is shit.
Okay, so then, if that's the case, why is this such a big deal? They're gonna then the courts will obviously take down FE cores off YouTube or whatever.
Yes,
Right?
it's going to be a big deal.
Then why is it a big deal?
And
It's a big deal
is not
because
slender.
it's a
I'm
big
not-
deal
I can
because
call you
they're
a shithole I
Sorry,
want.
go ahead, Barney.
because if they're allowed to get away with this, then others can start using these bully tactics to silence others. And nobody on either side should be silencing the other side like this.
Okay, and are we going to be the ones that decide this, or the courts?
The courts.
Okay, so then why
It's
are
up to
we
the courts.
deciding it? Because I mean, you guys have already said that, hey, guilty and they're fucked. But realistically, there's could be more into it, right? Am I wrong?
No, but let's say from the information available, it looks really poor for FE Core. I was just relaying the history that we were asked about earlier.
So if we were lawyers, we would be smart and we would be using the word allegedly a lot.
Correct.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I just think it's like a lot of publicity for no reason.
It's definitely going to be good for Sly in terms of views to his channel.
Wait, so you don't think that every flat earther is going, see how they're attacking? See how they want the truth not to get out? Like it doesn't help anything here.
Yeah, but here's my issue. If they really did go for a 501 and they are dodging taxes, I mean that's kind of taking money out of yours and my pocket.
But that's here nor there. No, it's not our.
Yeah, well,
it's only the people that would donate to them. It would take the money out of their pocket. Second,
well, yes and no, because that's the taxes that supply our government, which I mean, it still gives you the health care, things like that, and
no, that doesn't have anything to do with that though.
Oh, Sean, any donation that goes to FE Core, they don't have to pay any taxes on it if they're a 501c3.
But then at the same time,
exactly. That's my point.
But they also can't pull a profit. So then we would have to go into
that means that they have to distribute the money within themselves, which means they can pay themselves bonuses.
Right, and also the other thing is that if they were a 501, then all of that information. Well, yes, but all of that information they have to be open to a disclosure for the public. Anybody could go get their tax information. Anybody could ask for all of their emails, anything that's related to FE Core.
And why doesn't anyone do that?
They have been
because they're not a 501.
People have been asking for it, and it's been denied to them.
If they're not a 501, I don't think you can get anything. They're a private corporation.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is if they were claiming to be a 501 and they aren't giving out the information, if they really were a 501, they have to give out that information.
Didn't they say they were going to charge for the information or something?
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's all public knowledge, though. They are not allowed to charge for that information.
No, they're allowed to charge an administration fee.
Yeah, the administration fee would only cover if you were taking documents out, like getting them scanned.
It's the price of a stamp or
that.
an envelope. That's all.
And time. Exactly. They're allowed to charge time.
But none of that applies if they're just a private company, private corporation.
The problem comes in if they're trying to seek tax exempt type status. There are a lot of rules that need to be followed that they don't want to follow. Now, if you want more information on FE Core and some of these other members, there's Flat Earth Reset 3. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He does a lot of videos going after FE Core and the individual members, but particularly FE Core. His videos are rather amusing. I posted some links to his videos on Sly's comment section on some of his videos there. A few, but he's called Flat.
I'm sorry, this is what. It's like a bunch of grown men in a locker room trying to see whose dick's bigger. Like, seriously, Flat Earth is not fucking real. And look what you guys are all... You're, like, so animate about FE Core being taken down.
Oh,
FE Core
Sean,
ain't
you
doing
just
shit.
what the history was. I'm telling you what the history is.
No, I understand you're telling me about the history. I'm not...
But
not
Sean,
what it is it's like, it doesn't help either side.
Sean, it goes a little further than that. You have members like Bob Nodal, who is a known liar and a fraud. I've exposed him. Wolfie has exposed him. He's claimed to be an engineer.
What else do you need to do?
Oh, that the thing is Nodal, even as recently as yesterday in Ranty's chat, was trolling and claiming that he never claimed to be a professional engineer, which is a lie. It's posted in his bio on the Flat Earth Conference's sites, his bio. And the thing is we're looking at fraudulent behavior by Bob Knoll, because in the state of Colorado, where Bob lives, it is illegal. It's actually a felony to declare yourself or claim yourself to be a professional engineer with not having gone through the licensing board and taken the proper exams to attain a license. Bob does not have a license.
So then did you file with the courts prior to putting it on air?
File with the court. You don't file with the courts. You make a complaint to the board, and then they handle it at that point.
So then there was a file to the board, and they did something about it, and it became a situation where you guys were all right.
No, it hasn't gone that far yet. It takes a lot.
Why is it on YouTube?
Why is what on YouTube?
Or
It
why
doesn't.
it's okay.
It doesn't even matter. Are we not allowed to call people liars when they're lying, even if we don't don't personally take action against it?
No, that's
I mean,
not,
I have
that's not the problem. The problem is that I've been hearing about this for now, 2 weeks, and literally, it's just like it's a dick size measure. Which Glober is going to take FE Core down? And as far as I know, when I was running my business, or any legal situation happened, it wasn't something I wanted. It didn't need to be public. Publix doesn't do nothing. I'm telling you now, everyone that's having a problem with this.
It's not an issue, Sean, of taking anybody down. It's an issue of trying to have a cease and desist of fraudulent behavior.
No,
And
George, it was exactly that. I remember all the Bob Nodell shit was going on with you and everyone else. That's exactly what you wanted to do. That's exactly what you said.
Yeah, but
I have nothing. No, I haven't been going after FE Core. I've been going after Bob. I'm trying to stop Bob Nodell's fraudulent behavior because he's deceiving people into thinking that he has credentials and can speak from a position of authority.
Was that for like a year ago?
Yes, it's been going on.
Why hasn't Colorado done something about it then?
Because I haven't filed a formal complaint yet about.
So is it about him not being an engineer, or is it about what you want people to perceive you?
It's about him not being an engineer. He doesn't.
Then why haven't you filed it with the Colorado State Board? Because obviously he can continue to do whatever he wants to do. If you haven't filed, what was the point in bringing this to the light if you're not going to file?
The thing is after I had issued to Bob Nodell in my video that he was in violation of Colorado statute, it seemed like he had ceased calling himself a professional engineer, and I just found out yesterday that that's quite to the contrary, because people have sent me some links to where he's continuing to call himself a professional engineer. So at this point, I am going to move forward and try to and notify the proper authorities in Colorado to get a cease and desist.
Why didn't you do this at the beginning?
Because
it seemed like he was complying with my bringing it to his attention that he was in violation of Colorado statute. It seemed like he was complying, but now I realize that he has not.
Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to back off from YouTube and telling everyone what's going on, and you're going to file. Because it's like
yes,
like
I
it's
am.
like this big dick size man. If it was a situation of me thinking that someone was claiming to be a professional and they weren't, and I said, and I brought it to light, and nothing was going to change, I would first follow up on it.
Sean,
Second,
it's not a simple matter to you just don't call up and file a complaint. You have to file the paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork necessary, which I will now pursue and get an official complaint filed against Bob Nodell in the state of Colorado.
And what projects has he been put on under the false pretenses of an engineer?
He claims to be an engineer, and
What
on the
projects
board.
What projects has he done under the false pretenses of being an engineer? Because that's what they're going to ask you.
Oversight of the experiments done at FE Core.
Does he sign off as an engineer specialist?
I don't know. I've never been able to see the documents. They're not disclosed.
That's what matters. They're going to ask you those questions. What project and what project does he sign himself over as a specialist?
The board has the authority to obtain these sorts of documents and proof. All I can do is bring it to the board's attention, show them where to go looking for documents, and it will be up to them, not me, not the courts.
No, you can't file unless without evidence. You can't just say, "Here, go check out this website. You may find it
Yeah,
here."
he does have evidence, but he doesn't necessarily have to know the exact details.
He would have to know what project.
I have some screenshots of his bio from the Flat Earth conferences that very distinctly state that Bob Knodel is a professional engineer of 35 years. 2 years in a row he had that. I also have some videos where he was in being interviewed and has called himself a professional engineer in those interviews. So that will get the ball rolling.
Okay, well, I suggest that it not be so publicized, seeing how it's really not gone anywhere yet. I mean, because if I were just listening in or not,
you're telling you. Huh? You're asking me. You were asking me what proof do I have, and I'm just some of the things.
Yeah, well, it's very important. But I would have thought, especially with what's gone on, it would have happened by now, not a year later, because it's talked about like as if it's been proven.
Again, I said it seemed to me that he was beginning to comply, but now it's been brought to my attention that he has not. Even in his LLC, he is calling himself a professional engineer. I was unaware. I just let it go because it seemed like he was complying, and I wasn't going to bother myself with it. I'm tired of all this nonsense. I'm tired of the Brian Mullen nonsense. I'm tired of FE Core. But now, since people have brought this to my attention, I am focusing my sights on Bob Knodel. I don't care about FE Core. I don't care about Brian Mullen. I don't care about these other people, but I do care about Bob Knodel being claiming that he is something that is not professional engineer, has legal standing in this country. It has legal meaning, and it's just like calling yourself a surgeon or an MD when you haven't obtained a certification through the AMA or a lawyer having gone through the bar. This
is him claiming to be a surgeon without having attended school for it.
I can say I'm a surgeon all day as long as I don't do any surgery or do any supervising on a.
Well, it depends on what the statutes are. I'm telling you, the statutes in Colorado say you cannot even claim you are an engineer, even if you haven't practiced or received any money.
Right. I happen to know of a guy that
claiming in public that you are a professional engineer is in violation of Colorado statute.
Okay. Well, what was that, Schrodinger?
I know of a guy who sits in jail right now for calling himself a lawyer.
And Sean,
what was that again?
Wait, Sean, if you go claiming that you're a surgeon without ever performing any surgeries, then I can go and say that you're not a surgeon and that you're lying to people. That's not slander.
I'm not saying that it is slander. I'm saying what is the legal ramifications of me going out and saying to anybody, any random person, that I'm a surgeon. Regardless of
because FE Core is making money, and so his bio that he is representing as his bio is contributing to the money that they're making because he's claiming credentials that he doesn't have.
He's using that false claim to bolster up a money-making project. Now, what my interest in all this is that FE Core is filing false DMCA copyright and privacy claims, using that, weaponizing it to silence opposition. And Sean, I think as a content creator on YouTube, you should be very interested in that as well. And just like every other, just like every other content creator out there, anybody that's interested in actually true freedom of speech should be very interested in this sort of thing, because to weaponize the DMCA to use false, patently and documentably false copyright violation claims and privacy invasion claims to silence the opposition is a crime. It is a felony, and it is perjury. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Do you know what happens when you make a false claim and it gets to courts? You know what happens?
You're reinstated and they are issued a strike.
No. I told you, YouTube is no longer involved at that point. At that point, then it becomes a reverse suit, and basically it's like a false claim. They will be sued. FE Core would be sued by Red's Rhetoric, Sly, all these people. There's no need for this. If it's, as they're saying, no slander, and they are 100% in their legal use of whatever they did, FE Core will be sued for losses.
And in that case, in that instance, in that facet, I do agree with you, Sean. You are absolutely correct.
Sean, I'm very surprised hearing your position on this issue, knowing your position on geoengineering and the companies that you talk against without having any real evidence or suing them or pursuing it legally, just talking about them on your YouTube channel about the stuff that they're doing. Mm-hmm. Right? That runs very contrary, almost hypocritical to what you're saying now about FE Core. Yes, if people perceive that what they're doing is wrong, if they perceive that it's harmful, that it's dishonest, everybody has the right to state their opinion. Right?
100%.
Yeah. In that case, I'm not understanding your position here.
I'm not saying. I'm not saying they shouldn't be. It's literally just like.
Okay.
Just like everyone's blowing this thing up as if like they got it figured out, and everyone's gonna they're the ones that are gonna take FE Core down. That's what the problem. It's not even a problem. It's just what I'm seeing, and I'm just expressing it.
Sean, at this point, it's more or less that they're making it very, very public that an organization is intentionally misusing a dedicated system to silence opposition. So they're being as loud about it as humanly possible.
Okay, well, that's the reason. That's the reason. That doesn't change me asking questions. I mean, I don't understand what the similarities are between what I do with geoengineering versus what FE Core is doing. The difference would be to me is that
I'm sorry. That could be just my impression, but hearing you talk, it almost sounds like, why the fuck is everybody talking? They need to either sue them or shut up. Why is this being dragged out into public? Why are people commenting on this? Why is everybody talking about, right?
Okay, well then I have a very good answer for that. One is funded by government, and one are nobodies. The information I get, like for instance, when we were talking geoengineering, I know that I'm talking under geoengineering and all this other stuff with very insane limited, if any, real perfect evidence, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yes, you have
pure evidence. I get that. The difference
you
is
have
that
a lot less evidence against Bill Gates, yet you mention him by name and say what he's doing and and he's not funded by the government, right?
Well, okay, yeah, well, kind of.
That's actually giving government contracts.
Well, here's the difference. If I had enough, and all of a sudden I got a letter at my door saying cease and desist, I would feel wonderful about that. I would be like, okay, I obviously hit a nerve, and I'm on the right track. The difference is that I would have to take full acknowledgement of the legal ramifications of what I have done versus what I'm going to do next. Adding all this to the FE Core thing doesn't help Sly or help anybody else. It's already there. If FE Core filed the complaints and if Sly didn't do anything wrong, FE Core is going to get sued.
Yes.
By whom?
I've got a point. A couple of quick points.
By Red Rhetoric, Sly, anyone they did a copyright against.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got to keep the voice down, otherwise I'm going to wake everyone and get into trouble. So I just checked. So I've got a couple of quick points. One is I don't think morally that we should have to defend positions when people are misusing the tools at their disposal. So I think the way that they're using the system that is imperfect that's set up on YouTube, isn't a good mechanism, and YouTube should definitely improve the mechanism. Because I think what you're saying in essence, Sean, is, and I don't think the argument's very sound, oh, well, great, you should just sue them. But actually to initiate court proceedings and go through legal proceedings, as we all know, or anyone who's been involved in them knows, it's not exactly hit or miss, and I agree they could probably win the case, and hopefully they will. But it is time-consuming and really unnecessary, because these claims have been made incorrectly by FE Core. Now, I've got no love lost really for Reds and that crew. They're not my style of ball earthers, if you like, right? I don't really know them, but they're not my most favourite ball earthers. But I think they do have a valid point that FE Core has specifically gone after one of their group, and they feel threatened. And so I think it is reasonable for them to make a bit of a song and a dance about it. And I feel it's a real shame that YouTube is not picking this up and acting a little bit more responsibly, because I could just download a video from, this video now. I could download this, have a copy of it, then claim it's mine, and then do a copyright strike against you, Sean, when I've just effectively copied your information.
And that's why I know exactly what's going to happen if FE Core is full of shit. It happened to me. The time I wasn't.
Sean, there also is an ulterior motive to why Reds is doing this. Is Reds and Sly are doing this. Well, Reds in particular, Sly not so much, because he doesn't really do much with monetization. Reds is using this as sort of a fund driver as well.
Oh, for what?
Yeah, and that's why I've got a bit of an issue with him.
Come
right?
on, wait. For what?
Yeah.
What is this one for?
Personally, a little bit for himself, a little bit for the legal fund, and I do know that he's still trying to raise funding for Sean Hufford.
For Sean, exactly. So I got a lot of criticism. Hang on, Sean. Let me say a bit, and then you can add to it. Yeah. I raised some objections while they were doing the Sean Hufford fund of why we should help Sean pay off his very stupid, by the way, 10-month contract, so Sean can now move down and sort of live in Red's apartment or whatever. My issue with that is, and by the way, I'll tell you what the ball earthers told me. I raised it and said, well, where is the grey line, right? We could raise money for anything. I've got a problem paying my bills, right? Maybe you could raise some money for Toady so that I can continue broadcasting on Jose's channel or something. Yeah, I don't think real life issues like that, which are not linked to the broadcasting of YouTube, they're just real life issues that we all cope with at sometimes, is a reasonable thing for raising money. What they said to me was, well, Sean's given a lot of pleasure to the community. He's a great community member. Shut up, Toady. Because really, if we want to give money to something and raise money for something, we should. I have a bit of a moral issue with it, right? Because I don't think it's that defensible. Because then what's the next thing going to be about?
Better yet, what's the difference?
Toady. Well, hang on, Toady. Can
I'm interested in debating this. So yeah, go on, Shaz.
Well, could I address a point real quick, Toady?
Of course. Always.
As long as they're being upfront as to why they're raising the money, and the monies that are raised are applied as they were claimed initially, they were going to be applied, as long as people willingly donate, I don't see a problem with it.
Exactly, that was the point that was made to me.
As long as there's transparency through.
So what did
from
Core?
beginning to end.
What is FE Core lying about to their members
Well, first.
One of the things that they're lying about, which is very obvious, is they have Bob Nodal on their board of directors, who is claiming to be a staff engineer advising FE Core, when it's very well known that, or should be well known, that Bob Nodal has not earned an engineering degree from any university, let alone is not a professional engineer that can practice and claim that he has such engineering credentials. He is a liar. He's a fraud, and he has also claimed that he has been a commercial pilot. And Wolfie 6020 has dug into that and shown that that is also a lie, that Bob Nodal has never been a commercial pilot. In fact, he hasn't held a valid private pilot's license in a couple decades, hasn't had the medical certifications to fly, yet he continues to claim that he's a pilot and is knowledgeable in this subject area as well as in engineering. Nodal is an outright liar and a fraud.
Mm-hmm. So I think the two main things, right, that people object to, other than obviously what Georgia said, is number one, they are misrepresenting themselves because FE stands for Flat Earth rather than Field Engineers. because core should be spelt slightly differently. And then I believe the second issue that they mainly have with it is that they have a office that's a sort of a shill office, if you like. They're only using it for collection of post, when apparently under the, I think it's Illinois or Indiana law.
Indiana.
Can't remember, Indiana, yep. Under Indiana law, it should actually be a proper staffed office with at least some form of being able to contact, whatever organization is based from there. And so therefore, I think the case is that it's somewhat misrepresentation. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just saying that that's what the articulation is from Reds and the others, that it's a misrepresentation because they're raising money and then getting tax money towards this outfit that really isn't then complying with the legal requirements. That's as I understand
it. Are they getting tax money?
They're getting donations. That's evidently clear.
Yeah, I guess the question is, they haven't. Yeah, so I guess the question is, when they looked into it, and again, I'm picking my words carefully because I don't want to slander anyone or libel anyone, because it's the internet, isn't it? So it's libel. I understand that they haven't maybe submitted the necessary documentation for anyone to ascertain whether they have got, the additional funds, the additional tax.
Well, the last information I've seen on this topic, they, for 2 years, were claiming to be a 501c3. Then suddenly that changed. Then they said they applied to be a 501c3. Yet up until, I believe it was July 31 of this year, many months after they said, well, we've applied, the IRS shows that they have not actually applied. There's no information at all. And that information with the IRS that they maintain, the IRS itself maintains this website for full disclosure. That's the purpose of this website, is full disclosure of 501c3 applicants. There's been nothing there for FE Core. Nothing. So they've not even applied up to this point, last I heard.
Let's also not forget that according to the state of Indiana, they don't even have a board because they filed and have continued their corporation as having 0 board members.
Yeah, the problem is this ongoing deception. They're hiding behind this 501c that they don't have. And it's putting out there a status that they're trying to project to help with funding and donations, and it's fraudulent.
I guess, having run a few businesses myself, sometimes you do lag behind the submission of paperwork against your accounts, right? Because it takes a year to gain the accounts, depending when your year is of your organization, be that, charitable or otherwise. Yeah, but then you've got an accounting period. Yeah.
But until you receive full certifications, you don't. But until you receive full certifications, Tony, you shouldn't be claiming you have them.
I don't disagree. I'm just putting the other point of view that sometimes people are a little bit lax and lag a bit in terms of submitting things. Because I say then you've got an accounting period, and then in the UK, and I don't know what it's like in America, you have a little bit of a grace period to make sure that you get that paperwork in. So, for example, when I set up my first business, probably took about a year, probably more like 18 months, before that was actually submitted.
Well, a bureaucracy is a bureaucracy no matter which side of the pond you're on.
Takes about a week in the U.S. Then I've set up a number of them too.
Yeah, and like Astro Rex is saying in here, and what I was trying to say is, he's saying FE Core is issuing false claims in efforts to maintain their deceptions, and that is what's been going on at a constant rate and pace with these people. They're made up of the members on their board are known fraudsters like Bob Nodal. There's other members on there.
Be careful. Be careful, George. Just using known fraudsters, because I don't know. That have some. Basis.
No, Jody, I have proof that Bob Nodal is a fraud.
Allegedly.
That's what I mean. Known fraudster would imply to me that there was some legal document you could point to and go, he's been committed to fraud. Right. That's what it would mean to me. But then I'm probably.
I think Karen B has been quoted as saying that they will use copyright as a weapon.
Yes,
and that's what I'm taking offense at, is their attempt at weaponizing DMCA.
They've stated their intent to falsely use claims in order to silence opposition.
Yeah, that part's wrong.
And that's something, and again, I want to make this abundantly clear. That should not be done by either side. You know, that's just
Absolutely.
wrong on every level.
No, I agree.
Absolutely.
Stopping free speech is that's the really bad thing they're doing, is they're closing down the debate and speech, and I completely agree with you. That is terrible. Terrible.
I mean, if we had GE Corps saying, you know, the Earth's a globe and we're going to start shutting down any flat earther by issuing, you know, false privacy claims and false, you know, trademark infringement notices, things like that, I would be just as vehemently against them as well. I don't care. Fraud is fraud, and
I would hope
fraudulent
that we could
behaviors
at
are
least spell
fraudulent
core right.
behaviors. Yeah, well, you know. I mean, a very, very old friend of mine is actually watching this video right now, and were she to speak up, she could tell you that, you know, my values have been my values, and I stand by them. When I say, you know, I stand for something, I do it, you know, whether somebody jumps in to help or not. And this is wrong. What FE Corps is doing is wrong, flat out. Pardon the expression.
I totally agree with that. And I've looked into Bob Modell on the FAA website too, just like Wolfie did. And he has never held a commercial pilot license.
Yeah, that's apparent.
Now,
nice as Wolfie is, I would say to anyone, don't cross Wolfie.
Probably not. Don't get
He
confused.
seems like the most polite person that will wreck your world.
Well, don't get confused about the way that works with aviation. A pilot's license, unless you do something to get it revoked, is yours for life. The medical is another issue. Okay, and you've got to have that done periodically, depending on what class medical you want. But
Right. Yeah, Wolfie showed that he didn't even have the medical aspect of it.
Yeah, that's another issue altogether. Bob Knodel is perfectly within his rights to claim that he has a single engine private rating. Perfectly within his right to do that.
Yes, but he has been claiming that he is a commercial pilot also.
And that's a lie.
I think he said a commercial multi-engine
yes
pilot.
Hell, that's better than what I got. I got a commercial single engine rating and a private multi-engine rating.
Yeah. But with Knodel, there's a long string of lies, litany of lies, and you know, at some point it has to stop.
Well, there's also just the personal aspect of someone claiming to have achieved something that you achieved. It's the same thing with the stolen valor. I mean, it's not necessarily. I don't even know how to say it, but it's personally offending.
It diminishes the accomplishments of others.
Right. And that's like you got Bud's 131 YouTube site, where he goes around and he finds people that falsely say that they are Navy SEALs, and he confronts them. It's because you're not. You didn't do that. You didn't go through that hardship and achieve that thing that these other people did. It's just stolen valor, and it's no less stolen valor to say that you're a pilot and diminish the achievement of people who are actually pilots.
You know, with Knodel, it goes a step further. Is he's using these false credentials these credentials he claims to have that he does not, to help promote and further the goals of FE Corps.
Yeah, well, there was a guy that set up an entire security company claiming that he was a Navy SEAL, and he wasn't, and he got called out for it eventually, and lost his entire company. But he had built this entire security firm based on his claiming that he was a Navy SEAL when he never was. It's no less. It's not, well, it's on a scale different, but in principle no different than what Bob did.
I personally don't really care how much they lie. They can lie all they want to, right up to the point that they start filing false privacy claims and false DMCA strikes. That's over the line. That's where that shit's got to stop. Nobody should be doing that.
Not even Gladys.
Not even Gladys. Well, Gladys has got better sense than most of those fucking idiots do.
No, it's just shameful. I mean, the way Bob Nodal goes through life here, to him, it's just a big joke. Yesterday in Ranty, he just thought it was all such a big joke. It's really quite shameful. The man's really quite despicable.
Yeah, I don't understand people like that. I really don't. I went through engineering school, George, but I never got a PE. And I would never dream of telling anyone I'm a professional engineer, ever.
Well, what's worse than that, Blue, with Nodal is I paid a search firm here about a year ago to find Bob Nodal's so-called engineering degree. Yeah, he'd never attended school. He never earned a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an actor, but I do play one on television.
And I did sleep in the Holiday Inn last night.
Okay, so where does this leave us?
And I don't know. I just came in here and we started talking history. Did we have a flat Earth topic that was going on before that?
I don't know. When I showed up, you guys had already gotten Sean all pissed off. So,
okay, so well,
Sean's triggered. Run.
Well, that's kind of what was the callus of my frustration. Because, so I'm going to kind of lay it out there right now because it needs to be said.
Please do.
I strive myself to keep this topic a topic, but to me, it seems like we've come to a point now where it's not flat Earth versus globe and the evidences and the science and the reasons why we believe or even to feel that everything is a truth or whatever. It's gotten to a point now where it's like this very cliquey, nowhere near the topic argument that that voids from what I want to be doing. Not that it's completely my fault that the conversation happened. I brought it up, so I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that if they're doing something so damn wrong that it needs to be a federal issue, none of us are going to speed that process. It's going to happen. They would get caught. How do I know? Don't pay your taxes 1 year. I guarantee you they find you no matter where you live. Trust me. It's I can see it much easier for a flat earther, or better yet, someone on the fence, to think this is just a shit talk fest rather than a informing the minds.
That I can agree with.
And to me, this doesn't help. Both sides. First of all, I don't know Sly, so he has nothing to do with what I'm about to say because I don't know the man. I don't think, honestly, I don't think I've even listened to one upload. But Red's rhetoric, as far as I'm concerned, and I've made this very clear, he's a piece of shit. He's now figured out he can gain personally from his channel. That's why he came back. And now he just does all these fundraisers. Why aren't you guys especially saying something about that? Why is his car, because he hit a pig, okay to be fundraising for? Why is it okay to fundraise for Sean and him to live together? Why is it okay for him to go and to say, hey, I want to go see a launch, which, let me remind everybody, has nothing to do with this fucking argument. He would go look at launches all day if Flat Earth never existed. That's what he does. But now he's figured out a way for people to pay for him to do it. And it's come to the point now where he can go, I want to go to a launch. I need food, gas, and a place to live. And people just give him money. Why doesn't anyone have a problem with that? Because remember, he built that audience, that platform, that everything on the topic of against flat Earth. You know, proving flat Earth is bullshit. Now he uses his platform as I need. Why isn't that a problem?
The same reason that it wasn't a problem for me to donate
there's a
some
lot of
money
people
to
who
a
would
friend
say
of
it
mine
actually is a problem.
that was diagnosed with cancer. He needed some help. I wanted to give it to him because I have my own reasons. And if people want to donate to Red for their own reasons, that's their business. As long as he's not committing fraud, as long as he's being transparent of why he wants the money and what he's going to use it on, and then does so, I don't see a problem with it.
So how many
In
people
Red's
have asked
defense,
for it?
he hit multiple pigs, not just one.
How many of you guys have asked for evidence of what he spent his money on?
Oh, well,
I don't know,
he
I
did
barely
provide
want
dash cam video of him hitting the pig.
That's not what I mean.
I'm being
I
sarcastic.
haven't asked him because I haven't donated.
Yeah, but everyone's asking, or I'm not saying you personally, but everyone's asking for FE Core's information and where they're spending money.
That's because FE Core is accepting potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're doing it again.
What, do you have evidence for that? Because I can guarantee you, I probably
He said
be safe to say that
potentially.
Red's Rhetoric makes more money than fucking FE Core.
He did say potentially.
Right.
I did donate to Sean Hufford when his father died.
As did I. There's some things I don't mind donations for. And when it comes to FE Core, I really mind donations. I mind donations to them because they are getting away with not paying due tax on it via fraudulence.
You believe that hasn't been proven for shit, right?
They are not a 501c3. It's proven.
Okay, then we know that. Wait, so you can't take donations unless you are?
They can take donations, but they have to pay tax on it.
How do you know they're not?
That's.
Do we know they're not?
They're very likely not.
Wait. Really?
We can't tell because they will not allow what is allowed to be audited if they're a 501c3 to be audited.
I don't have to give you my information from my company and what I made.
You're also not a 501c3.
Okay,
No. Here's the thing. They're saying they're a 501c3.
You just got done saying the only time it would matter is if they weren't paying taxes on it. So they can take donations. They don't have to be that 501 whatever.
Yes, they can take it, but if they're claiming 501c3 status, then they are obligated to tell us.
I heard someone say earlier that they said they were applying for it. Did they say they are applying for it or they are?
Okay.
Sean, to clarify, hang on, Sean, that was me, Unpaid Shills here. That was me that said that. What it said on their website was for about 2 years, it said on their website, we are a 501c3. Then after about 2 years of that, it suddenly changed to, we're applying to become a 501c3. And then now for about another year or so.
What if the government?
No, that's
what if
that's
a
a big typo.
All the people who donated to them
were
thinking that they were contributing tax-exempt money.
Do you really think that's what they were doing?
Well, if you donate to a 501c3, you can deduct that contribution from your taxes, which is why people say that they're a 501c3 when they are, so that people know if I donate to these people, then I can deduct that from my taxes.
Okay. Do I pay my taxes on my monetization or super chats?
I don't know.
Doesn't YouTube pay it? Doesn't YouTube pay it directly out of the cut that they take?
Yeah,
because you're technically
you still have to file. You still have to file. You're an independent.
Okay.
That's again, YouTube takes themselves out of everything. Do I? Let me see where it says it. Okay. Do I put all of my super chats to my computer and/or research?
You are not a 501c3. If you're misfiling your 1099, that's the difference.
As of right now, are they claiming to be?
They have in the past. That's the major issue.
Okay, then they
right,
stop.
Sean.
What if they
stopped because they got caught.
Okay, wait. If they got caught, then wouldn't they be shut down? I think that's pretty illegal.
Nothing was filed against it, but it was pointed out that they are not. So to protect themselves, they removed it from the site.
Yeah, that's pretty smart. Who did, or how do you know they didn't do it while they were applying? See, that's the thing I'm having an issue with, because you made it pretty clear. You don't know about the tax
Because
part,
there's
so
no history of application.
okay. Let me get back to the point. Brian, if they are a 501, or if they're really not a 501, then what are they doing to the people that are donating? It would be they are basically not paying taxes on what other people are paying taxes on.
It's not them paying taxes. It's the people who are donating. Say I give $500 to
Yeah, I get that part. But they would have, but it would be, if they're lying about it, then they're getting tax-free money, is what it is.
And depending upon how the donation is coming to them, they could find a way out of reporting it that way.
It's not even really.
No.
That.
It's if I give $500 to FE Corps, I can deduct $500 from my taxable income on my tax return. If I think they're a 501c3,
So
if they're not
generous,
a 501c3, then that is me making a false deduction on my tax return.
So how it works in the UK, exactly the same. It's called gift aid. Yeah, if I give 500 quid to a company, right, and they're a charity, I can deduct that from my tax. So it's not like me using my real money that I'm paid after tax. It's taken before my tax, right? So it's a really good way to get big, generous donations. Do you sort of mean to charitable organisations? Okay.
Right.
Yep. Now in the UK, they check it. They check that the company that I've said, or the charity, I say Red Cross, right? They check the Red Cross exists. I couldn't just put down Toadie's company or something. Yeah.
Back, Toadie, is in filing in the U.S., if you're going to claim a deduction, you better have some proof of it, like a statement of receipt from the organization that you.
There you go. Right.
And what happens is
that organization had better be 501.
So basically, they're lying to their donors.
It would go both ways. But see, that's the thing. If they were making something that was that big of a deal, which is a big deal, why hasn't they been taken down by the government, federal, state?
Because the wheels of justice turned very, very slowly.
Well, it's not even that. It's really not even that, Schrodinger. If they took in, let's say they take in $1,000, okay, we'll just use a number for shits and grins. Last year they took in $1,000. As long as they distribute that out in a way that the corporation made no money on it, it owes no taxes on it. In fact, that's the exact rule that you play by when you're a subchapter S corporation, and I've owned several of those. Yep, even as a C corp, all you've got to do is make sure the company never makes any money. You just distribute all of it to yourself, and you pay personal tax on it. The worst situation of all is letting the company make money on it, which it then has to pay tax on, and then paying yourself out of that, and then you get to pay tax on the money again.
Right. Also, if you don't make enough money, the IRS really isn't going to bother with you because it's not true.
Not true. Does not matter. If you do not file, you will get a letter.
Well,
understood. But what I'm saying is, they're not going to trifle too much with people. They're going to get the bang for their buck. People who make a ton of money are much more likely to get audited than people who don't make very much.
Don't get the government wrong. They want little money and big money. Trust me. I started my own company, and for the first 2 years, I had nothing but interviews with IRS to make sure I wasn't doing that because my company was so small. They care just as much. Actually, the small companies are the companies that can steal the most.
Well, that's because I was calling them and telling them that you were fraudulent.
Well, that's impossible because I called them to make sure I didn't become fraudulent. That was the funny part. I went, I have to file for this? Okay, let me get all that shit.
That's not really true, though.
What?
That's really true in terms of small IRS is going to put a lot of resources in going after small companies.
Yeah, statistically, they go after big fish.
A lot of this is complaint driven. The smaller companies is whether or not on the IRS's radar will be whether or not they receive.
So what they actually do is they go for sort of medium. Hang on. They go for the medium companies because the very big ones are audited anyway, right? By major auditors, right? Exactly. And the small companies, bang for your buck, you're not going to get much back. So they tend to go for, in the UK, and it may be different in the US, ones above about 4 million turnover up to about 25 million. Because above that, as I say, you've got accountants who are auditing you anyway, right? So there's a lot less fraud. So there's this sweet spot, because I've worked for the agency in the UK, certainly, and I'm sure the Americans use a similar system, right? That there's a real sweet spot for companies that are big enough to make it worth, their while doing some kind of fraud, and they've focused their energies on that.
Put it this way.
Yeah, I think people in the US who make...
Here in America, understand this. The IRS is now going after people that don't file their Uber money. Okay? So, yeah, they go for everyone. It's the idea that a small company is no big fish, whatever. I don't see how FE Corps could be getting away with that for 2 years if it was that big of a deal. I think it could have been a typo. I think it could have been something different. I mean, maybe for all we know, they applied to a year and 9 months ago, and their website fucking guy is a shit fucking worker, and he didn't update it.
Then it's up. Then also the state of Indiana and the IRS are not updated as well.
With what? Okay, so you can see who applies for
their
it.
filing status. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You can see who applies for it. Also, the other thing is, if they show no profit, they can file taxes as no profit, or they can file their taxes showing that they didn't make a profit. But if they took that money out of their, say their PayPal account and distributed it among themselves, that's still a profit.
You pay personal tax on it then. Right. That's exactly right.
Well,
the company doesn't pay tax, but the eventual whoever gets the money pays personal tax on it at that point. Trust me, I've been through this many times.
So at some point,
in fact, we have a whole class of corporations set up specifically for that to work that way. It's called a Subchapter S corporation, and it is strictly prohibited from making money. At the end of the year, the owners of the Sub S, the members of the Sub S, or an LLC for that matter, are required by law to dump all the money into to themselves personally and pay income tax on it.
So they are turning over a fair amount of money. If you look at the equipment they've got, Mick Hummer isn't donating all that for free from his engineering company. They've got a fair old spend there. If you look at the things they're going in the power boats, they've got that gyroscope they're building. I've seen other experiments where they've got quite a bit of investment in bits of kit, right, which isn't free. So I think they've got a fair amount of money, FE Corp. Yeah, it's not just a tiny tin pot concern in one little room with like one guy, if you sort of mean, working on it. Yeah, they're using money to do experiments.
Plus all their travel and expenses.
Yeah, that's what I mean, exactly. So, it's probably just a very good way of pursuing their hobby cheaply, right, is what I guess.
Yeah. I mean, hell, if I could pursue my hobbies and have other people pay for it.
It'd be lovely, wouldn't it? If you go to their site, have a look, I'm sure you have, through their documents, right? There's a lot of stuff they're doing there. Yeah, and I bet you they're, buying the laser. They said they got a really expensive laser, didn't they, for doing one of the experiments? Yeah, so it's costing money all the time.
They got a really expensive laser
collimator. I need to get in on that. Being an electrical engineer is hard. I could just fucking fly around and shoot lasers at shit.
You just described the fantasy of every 12-year-old boy on the planet.
Well, yeah, that's the life they're living, apparently.
And me.
Freaking lasers.
It's freaking lasers, I think.
Yeah, which is better than fucking magnets. How do they work?
Solar freaking lasers. Crickets.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where it all ends, because I do agree they've done some wrong things, but it will be interesting to see how long the wheels of justice take to turn, or whether there's going to be a proper investigation by the Indiana state into them or something. Normally these government organizations play safe, right? So if someone does raise a complaint, there's sort of often no smoke without fire. So certainly in the UK, they would actually investigate rather than just bin it or something. But I don't know about the US, whether it's like that there, because I know you've got state and national law, so maybe it's more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, for all concerned, it's pretty obvious that FE Corps is not the independent research organization they want people to believe that they are, or a bona fide research organization to boot.
Of any sort.
At all.
But I'm just wondering, will the Indiana, whatever the state legislature, will they actually investigate that, or will they just go, we're too busy, we've got other stuff to look at, like other crime or whatever? Do you see what I mean? Will they actually look into them, the state?
Well, the state would probably go off of the back of the IRS, because if someone reports to the IRS that they claim they were a 501, then the IRS is definitely going to look into it.
Well, if somebody out there really want to get the ball rolling, all you do is call the Attorney General of the state of Indiana and file a
Which has been done.
And
They
that
have.
has been done.
Yeah, I think that's been
Then the
done.
ball will be rolling.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, as I understand.
Go ahead, Schultz.
Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You're good. What you're gonna say is probably more
Well,
important.
I was just going to say that as I understand it, the Attorney General of Indiana has already been alerted, and the ball is beginning to roll.
Hey, Pip, are you still here? Hi, Parrot.
Yes, I am.
Thanks for being in the chat last night. I had a ton of fun.
I watched it this morning. I wish I could have stayed longer, but no, eyes were shutting. No, you did great.
Thank you. I said good things about you as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
You didn't hear?
Well, I heard something about a doll.
Yeah, I said that you were an
Thank you.
absolute doll.
Yeah, blushing. No, it's good. I enjoyed it.
I'm waiting on them to tell me some details about tomorrow night.
Oh, you're on tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Supposedly.
What time?
They are they are an absolute blast. They are a ton of fun. The whole bunch of them.
11:30 British Standard Time, or British. What is that?
UTC.
BST.
GMT.
Summertime, British summertime.
British summertime, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't get that through my head. You guys got a lot better sense than we do. You came up with a name that made sense. Summertime. We have to call it daylight saving time. What the hell are we saving? We're not saving any daylight.
I don't know.
What is that bullshit? Why didn't we call it summertime? That makes sense.
I lose something every time it happens.
Whenever daylight savings time comes around, especially right now, I really do wish I could just cash in however many days I've banked right now.
Almost like sick days or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, last night I got Drunk Monkey to tell my wife, because his catchphrase is "Oi fucking oi," so I got him to say, "Hey Nicole, oi fucking oi," and so I put it in iMovie this morning and clipped it out, and so I've just got that, and that's her ringtone now.
That's
so
funny.
when her phone rings, it says, "Hey Nicole, oi fucking oi."
Mute that before you go to church.
No, turn up the volume.
Yeah, blast it out. Put it over the PA system.
Call her in church.
Does she know it's been changed?
Oh no, she thinks that he's hilarious. She's not really into the whole flat earth thing at all, but there's only a few people. She likes Drunk Monkey, and she likes what's the fuck is his name? The guy from Wales. Creaky. Yeah, she likes Creaky.
So is it the accents, do you think? Is it the English accents they've got, or something else?
Well, Drunk Monkey is just fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
I
He's
like
got a
Creaky's
Bristol
sense of
accent
humor.
as well. He has got a Bristolian accent, right? Because he comes from Bristol, so he's got that kind of West Country.
And he
William
always
Farmer kind of thing.
he comes in hot every fucking time. They're like, hey, Drunk
He does.
Monkey, what do you think? And he comes in with just F-bomb after F-bomb, which is a man after my own heart because I'm a sailor. So, yeah, I've been on there twice, and I've had a ton of fun. And now they've asked me to be a fill-in host, which is I'm very, very honored that they would ask me to do that.
Yeah, I think it's quite an entertaining show. I think it's a nice thing to have a panel. Do you sort of mean like that in that way? And the graphics are very good, as I say. The production's very slick. Yeah.
Right.
Makes
Yeah,
it
I
entertaining
think
because of the
it's gonna
cartoons. Yeah.
I think it's going to turn into a pretty big channel.
Yeah. Oh man, I kind of wish this 444 guy in the chat would come on. He seems to have a lot of answers for us.
I blocked him.
Yeah,
So
a lot of
what I'm gonna do
answers.
is
do we have a flatty in the chat?
yeah, but hang on. I'm pretty much going to end the stream. Kind of don't know where this is going to go. I'm actually probably not going to really save this one. Kind of conflicted with the conversations that we've had about it. I'm definitely conflicted with some of the people on the panel, in the sense of their motives and or why. But it's here nor there. Kind of at loss of words right now, and I don't know what to say. So if I muted myself, I'm kind of in a quandary of thought right now when it comes to the situation. I'm definitely going to go live in probably about 2 hours. I'll go live again because I got to go pick up my son, which is the main reason. But I want to have a conversation about this again. Yeah. So I'm going to come back on in a half hour or a couple hours. I'm sorry for the abrupt stop, but this kind of opened my eyes to a few things, and I kind of want to assess them without saying anything before I address it. If that makes sense.
Oh, I'm sorry if I got excommunicated tonight.
Nope, don't do that. Nope, not you, Brian.
It's always good to get information.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm doing. I want to assess everything, so it's not a situation of bringing it to light and for no reason. Because, matter of fact, Jose said it pretty good in the chat. All the main issue is that it's constantly brought up. I honestly haven't heard about it, because I don't know. I try to stay away from that stuff, but it came to a head probably last night about hearing all this stuff, and I had questions for it. So it was not that I was defending FE Core. It was more that I'm trying to get to the motives of what's going on. But like I said, I kind of want to step away and gather my thoughts before I talk about this, because I do know that some of my thoughts are not right or necessary. So I'd much rather do it that way. So like I said, guys, everyone on here, more than welcome to be back on the panel when I come back in 2 hours. I'll say 2 hours because if I give you a time, it makes little sense to most of you because we don't live in the same area codes. But yeah, I'll definitely be back. I need to start. Yeah. And then once I'm done talking about that, I'm probably never going to talk about it again, because real shit.
It's Pie Parrot. Pie
Parrot's less to me.
Problem.
So.
Damn it, Pie Parrot.
Sean,
we can't have nice things.
And Sean, for what it's worth, I kind of saw you as playing devil's advocate more than anything. So
yeah,
it's all cool here.
That's where it was. I prefer to know what motives are real or are necessary to be involved, or is it just this one-sided thing, and that's kind of. I'll talk about it later. Like I said, if I said what I had in my brain about the situation, I'm going to offend people, and I know it's just the reaction of just not thinking, and so I want to think about this. I don't want to just fly off the handle. I don't want to just say stuff that I'm wrong about or I shouldn't even be saying. So I'm going to collect my thoughts, and I will be back in a couple hours. Don't think it's against anyone individually here. Trust me, it's not. If it was, I would have called you out while you were talking, and it would have been the end of the show then. Trust me, all of you are cool. I love y'all.
And Sean, for what it's worth, something else. Just because somebody's offended doesn't mean they're right.
Exactly. Yeah, offended and or confused, I will say. Because, like I said, I don't have a fighting dog. Actually, I have issues with both sides. So realistically, I know if I end right now and I have time to think about it, then I will come back in a couple hours with a better idea of what to say. And I've learned over the few years that I've been doing this that many of my rants are unthought. And this one I definitely want to be thought through, because it's something I'm seeing, and it needs to be said. And that's all I'm going to say, guys. I'm going to get out of here now because I will start my rant, and if I don't. But again,
All
I'll
right,
send
cool.
you guys. I'm pretty sure everyone here is part of the barracks.
The
think
book.
so.
What is it?
Let me, because no one can get. I'm gonna get the because like I said, I prefer if everyone here was on the panel when I came back, but I know obviously it can't be 100% done. But I do have someone I want to try to get in contact with on. I got to do it over Discord, but they would be able to credibly speak on behalf of that side. We'll say.
Oh, which
And
side? FE Core or
the flat? I'll say the flat Earths. I will not say
Okay.
FE Core. I'll say the flat Earth side. But there's someone credible enough, though. I know that for sure.
Fair enough.
But
Okay.
I'm sure I'm not going to bring up their name unless I have permission to, because I actually know this person. What's up? What's up, George?
Just keep in mind, Sean, that the problem is that FE Core or members of FE Core is starting to slide down a slippery slope by their recent actions towards Sly and others, and also one of my videos, which was caught up in all this, is they've kind of put a shot over the bow, and if this thing isn't dealt with, you could end up with a lot of tit for tat, which isn't going to benefit anybody.
George, I don't think you are. I think you're the only one here that's not. Maybe Fry Cat. I'm not sure. If anyone that's in this panel is on Discord, I just put the link to the bunker in our side chat. That's the place where the link pretty much always goes, unless it's public right away, and or topic based. I'll contact everyone there, but it's just my place where I can control who gets links and stuff and part of the discussion. So I will send first I'll send the YouTube stream so it pops up there, and then I'll put the link in there just so I can get the same people. I'd rather have the same people rather than the new people talking about what the old people were talking about. So if that makes any sense. But yeah, like I said, I got to take off. I got to get my son anyway, and I want to fully think about what I want to say on the stream about this topic, and I will do that then. So guys, I do appreciate you being here, and I will talk to you guys a little bit.
Thank you, Sean. I probably won't make it because it's 1:45 right now. I'll be sound asleep. But have fun.
No worries. You'll have plenty of time to be back.
I might wake up. You never know.
And of course, likewise for me too. Yeah. So after we'll be in bed.
There, lady, is it? You pronounce it P-paired or?
All right, guys. Like I said, I'm gonna get out of here. I got some stuff I gotta take care of, and I actually do have I'm not gonna even say personal issue, but I have issues with the discussion that we had today. Both sides. I'm going to assess my thoughts, and I'm gonna be back in literally 2 hours, and then that'll be the end of it as far as I'm concerned. But with that said, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. And just so you know, I'm gonna give maybe 5 minutes at best to this top conversation. It's gonna be that quick, but I want to get into some more topics like I was trying to do when we started before. My topic was kind of sidetracked by the BS of FE Core. But with that said, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. I got some stuff I gotta do, and I'll see you guys later.